Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa. Wassalamun ala ibadihi allazina istafa amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara wa quduha an-nasu wal hijara. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wassalamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. So yesterday we spoke about the role of a father, and today inshallah we intend to discuss the role of a mother. And this verse that we began, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you should protect yourself and you should protect your family from the fire. And we discussed this last class as well, that our children can be sadaqah jariyah for us, but then they can also become a fitna, that you will be tested and tried by them, by the children that a person has. And the number way that the children are a test is that the question is that will you raise your children according to the will and the wish and the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or this will be a test. Do you raise them according to the wishes of the dunya? So the dunya and fashion will tell you that you let them wear a particular culture, fashion, and get them certain types of technologies. And that's a test for you as a parent, as a mother. That will you succumb to that, or will you follow the wishes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And this test will happen all the time. Sometimes your own children will test you. So they will come to you very sweetly, very innocently, and they know that you have love for them, especially a mother. The love for a mother, the love of a mother is unparalleled. And then they will ask you to do something or allow them to something, or let them go somewhere, let them do something, let them be with someone, which is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to do. It's not the most pleasing thing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not the most preferable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this will be a test for you as a mother. This will be a test for you, that will you let your soft motherly love and kindness and affection make you spoil your child? Or will you be steadfast in deen? And while remaining gentle and affectionate, can you use your wisdom to steer your child away, to keep your child away from that which is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And this is something that we see most of the time when mothers, they come and they ask questions about parenting. Most of the time it's because something has gone wrong. And many times it's what we call that too little too late. Means that they were not looking at the guidance of deen. when they were raising the child. They did whatever they felt. They did whatever they wanted. They did whatever the relatives told them to do. They gave in to peer pressure. They gave in to that social pressure. They followed the culture, the norms, and then they took a chance. It was a test. They took a chance. And then when one of their children turns out bad, maybe they don't pray, maybe they question the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe they catch them in some unlawful relationship, or sending some inappropriate message, or viewing something which is inappropriate, then after all of that time has passed, and now when the child fails to uh, come out according to the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's when the mother comes and asks that, what does Islam say about raising children? It's the same thing in marriage as well, that people wait for problems in marriage, and then they want to know what Islam says in marriage. So this is the first fitna. This is the first step. It's a test that will you look for guidance? Will you look for guidance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to Deen, to Quran, to Sunnah in your identity and role as a mother? Or will you just let yourself be a mother on your own, unguided, uninformed, doing whatever you happen to see or whatever you happen to feel that this is the right way? It's a chance. It's a chance. It might work, but in the culture and the environment that we're living in these days, the surrounding culture, it's going very, very far away from Deen, very, very far away from the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why a lot of people are failing in this test of being a good mother. And now, just so that all of us understand what this means, it's important to get an idea of what is the Islamic concept of the role of a mother, to see where it begins, and then see how many of these things anyone has in their own life. How many things does any woman has and things that she has done. So it actually begins quite early. It begins very, very early, even before she conceives and even before she is expecting her child. Even before that, the first thing is that the desire for children, the want for children, the wish to have children, at that very outset, this has to be the niyat. The niyat, this has to be purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I want to be a mother, I want to have a child. Why? So I can bring a life into this dunya and raise that person so that they end up becoming the wali of Allah. They end up becoming the friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They become the worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that they become the khadim of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They become a beloved ummati of Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam. So that has to be right there at the very outset. And if this is not there, and it just happens, or it's just ghafla, or it's just routine, and there's no conscious intention and du'as and prayers to Allah Ta'ala, then that's a bad start. And rather, it's an empty start. It's ghafla. It's an empty start. So the very beginning, just like you can imagine, we did this yesterday as well. The Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, Sayyidina Zakaria alayhi salam, is making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making dua that Allah grant me a waliya, grant me a wali. Allah, don't leave me alone, and grant me this wali, grant me a child which will be pious, which will be your abd. And in the same way, a woman as well, every woman, before she has a child, she should want that the child should be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's number one. And then secondly, when she conceives, then at that moment, she should have a lot of shukr. A lot of shukr. She shouldn't only have shukr if it took her 10 years to conceive after marriage. That should not be I will have shukr if it takes X number of years. She shouldn't only have shukr if she had two missed miscarriages before, and without waiting for any misfortune, for any calamity, she should be doing a lot of shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah blessed her with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed her to conceive. And all of you know that there are, just like for every blessing in this dunya, there are always so many people who are deprived of that blessing. There are many people who have wealth, but there are so many people who are deprived of wealth. There are many people who have homes, but there are so many people who are homeless. There are many who have health, and then some who don't have health. And there are many people who have children, and there are also many people who are deprived of the blessing of children. Even if they try to go for these different treatments and different procedures within the boundaries of Sharia, it's not that simple. It's not something that one can always go and buy. This is one of the blessings of Allah Ta'ala. Like all other blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is Allah's fazl. It's His karam, it's His grace, it's His mercy that Allah gives to whomsoever He wishes. And that's why, second thing, that she, as a mother, she should feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me. And it comes in a hadith in Mubarakah that this process that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives the pregnant woman of all of her sins during the process of labor. Yani all her sins are forgiven. And this is a fazl from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this in itself is a separate blessing. That this, you can say that Allah has placed His burden physically upon her, that she is carrying a child. And this is the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that whenever any hardship is placed, whenever a burden is placed, whenever a difficulty is placed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always attaches to that some ease, some relaxation. So this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah. It's one way of forgiveness that the men, they don't have access to, that women exclusively have access to, which is that at this time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives all of their sins. So that's why a woman who's conceived and she's expecting, she should do a lot of shukr of Allah ta'ala. Allahumma lakal hamdu wa lakal shukru. Allahumma lakal hamdu wa lakal shukru. And then this is also our time, and not many women are aware about this, that this is a time for kubuliyat dua. The whole pregnancy and especially labor, it's a time to make dua. It's a time to make dua. And all the mothers who imagine, and again, this is a time when duas are actually accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Duas at the time of labor, they're accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And many women, they're negligent about this. And I just imagine that if all the women, all the mothers were in their labor, they made dua for the ummah. If all the mothers in their labor, they're making dua, there's so many things to make dua for, that all the women who are lawfully married and lawfully had children, if they at that moment are making dua for their fellow Muslim women who are engaged in unlawful relations and are having unlawful children out of wedlock, that's another ni'mat that a person can make dua that, Ya Allah, not only did you bless me with a child, but you blessed me with a child within the Sharia, according to your wishes, through nikah. Ya Allah, there's so many of my fellow Muslimin, Muslimat, Muslim women who did not know about this, who did not understand, or they knew but they failed to understand, or they knew and they understood but they just failed to control themselves, and they ended up committing this sin, and now they're having these children outside of nikah. So a person should be grateful to Allah Ta'ala, to shukr to Allah Ta'ala. Then some of the mashayikh, they mentioned that as soon as the woman she gets this information, that she discovers that she's expecting, immediately she should make shukr to Allah Ta'ala. She can say, Allahumma lakal hamdu wa lakal shukru. And then pray 2 rakat nafil, shukr to Allah Ta'ala. And There are some women who spend their entire nine months pregnancy and never once do they pray these 2 rakat of nafil shukr to Allah Ta'ala. So we're only concerned about the mundane aspect. And yes, a woman, she should take care of her health. She should eat well. She should rest well. And, mashallah, in different cultures, uh, societies, are actually special food preparations that are given to the women who are expecting. But just like she is given these special food preparations to nourish her physical body during that pregnancy, she should also do some special spiritual azkar, more tilawat, more zikr, more istighfar, more durood, more du'as, so that she can spiritually nurture that baby inside her pregnancy. Many women, they go through entire 9 months of pregnancy and they never recite the whole Quran even once. So the baby in the womb has never heard the Quran. They didn't listen to the Quran recitation by an audio or from some qari. So there's so many things. And I'll give you an example, very ajib example that we heard from one of our teachers. There was a person in London, and her husband said that uh, that there is good news that me and my wife, she's expecting, and we're expecting our first child. And then at some point, the husband said that we're actually going for Umrah. So the person asked that, she it's her first time and she's pregnant and you want to go for Umrah, just make sure that she's in good health and everything is fine and how far she's into a pregnancy. So he replied and said that actually the woman, she had read this in a hadith, which was a true hadith, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts the ruh in the baby at the time of around 120 days. So she had calculated based on whatever the doctors told her the due date was, and then estimated just to be on the safe side. And then she said that I want to be sitting in front of Baytullah Sharif in Makkah Mukarramah when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts the ruh in my baby in my womb. Allahu Akbar. This was her niyat. This was her intention of going on Umrah. That amazing that we are sort of sometimes being careful that don't go, and here that's actually the reason why she is going. She has this wish. Imagine a woman who begins her pregnancy like this, that I want to be in Baytullah Sharif, in front of Baytullah Sharif at that time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts the ruh in my baby, in the baby inside of me. So imagine then what type of du'as that woman must have made while looking at Baytullah Sharif. Imagine what du'as that woman must have made for her baby while doing tawaf. What type of du'as she would have made while making sa'i. This is called that you are doing shukr to Allah Ta'ala for this gift of pregnancy. So there's so many examples like that women who took such great care, this ihtimam. So again, we were saying that in today's culture, in different cultures, some women they take a lot of care to have these special food preparation during pregnancy for their physical nourishment. And similarly, she should also take great care in this extra recitation of Quran. And uh, we're not suggesting that every month then they calculate and they try to go for Umrah and see when the first 120 days come. But even if a person is here, even if you can't go for financial reasons, but one could do the exact same thing in theory right here. One can calculate this, and then roughly speaking, they can see when will 120 days come, maybe plus minus 10 days, and then spend those 20 days or let's say 1 month in a lot of ibadah. Try to do constant ibadah so that the ruh enters the baby in your womb when you are in a state of zikr, in a state of ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a new way. We also read this hadith, and most of us, we read this hadith as just a point of information that 120 days the ruh comes. But the women who love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those women who are seekers of Allah ta'ala, those women who are on this path of zikr, they get these amazing insights. And this is the power of the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When women are regular in their muraqabah, in their zikr, this is the power of zikr. And it opens up. Then what our mashayikh have also mentioned is that during her pregnancy, because she might be more resting, spending more time resting as opposed to being active, not so active. So she should do another form of ibadah, which is called reading and learning. She should read the seerah of Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam during that time, so that in her heart she has emotions for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam while she has the baby in her womb, because even modern science tells us that women, the pregnant woman, her emotions, her feelings can also have an effect on the baby. So they're looking at it from the other side. They want to make sure that the woman is not depressed and stressed. The woman is not this. It doesn't sort of, nothing negatively impacts her or impacts the baby. So then why not look at this from the positive side? Because what happens when you read the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, you are going through the whole life of the Prophet ﷺ. You will feel different aspects of love for the Prophet ﷺ. You will feel a different feeling of love when you read about the Prophet ﷺ being a baby and his early life, being wet nursed by Halima Sadiya radiallahu anha. You will feel different feelings of love for the Prophet ﷺ. When you read about him becoming an orphan, you will get another feeling of love. When you read about him trying to support himself by working for Sayyidina Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, and on and on and on. And as you go through the whole seerah, you will feel so many different tinges and colors of love for Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. So you want to take your baby through that journey of love. You want that baby in your womb, take them through the journey of love. And then the next thing is, the Mashaykh mentioned that she should read the biographies of the noble and the pious people, yani the Sahaba Ikram and the Awliya Ikram. The Sahaba, the Awliya, the Anbiya. So first is Siratul Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then Anbiya alayhi salam, then Sahaba Ikram, then Awliya. Why? Because again, she will get a vision. Again, the feelings. She will get the feelings, but also she will get a vision of what an ideal human being is supposed to be like. What is the height that an insan can reach? Obviously, nabuwat, no one can attain that. That's selected by Allah Ta'ala. And the doors of nabuwat have ended. But wilaya is still attainable by humanity. Wilaya, friendship, closeness to Allah, wilayat. So she will get an idea that maybe she will then make du'as during the pregnancy. When she reads those stories that, Ya Allah, make my son like that, make my daughter like that. If this child in me is a daughter, make her like Rabia Basriya, make her like Hazrat Maryam alayhi salam, like Hazrat Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha. If this child inside of me is a son, make him like Hassan Basri, rahmatullah alayh. Make him like Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. She will naturally make those du'as, but with a lot of feeling, with a lot of feeling. So she needs, and this is a very relaxed, restful activity, because physically speaking, in pregnancy, many women, they will need to rest a bit more, be a bit more at home, in bed, or on the chair. So she should read. And again, it's so sad. What do the women do instead? They start reading all types of magazines of baby clothing. And to a little extent, no problem. But you don't need to spend hours and hours and days looking at the baby crib and baby magazine and baby clothing and parenting 101 books and parenting for dummies. You're a Muslima. We don't need the dummies series. We have the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ. Then after that, when she's pregnant, she should also make sure about what she eats. This is really important. And there are different levels of eating. Obviously, the first bare minimum level is halal. But there's another word Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses in the Quran, which is halal, tayyib, and then third word that is azka. When the Ashab Kahf, they woke up from their slumber in the cave, and they realized that some years have passed by. So they sent someone that, okay, one of you go to the town and find some risk. Halal, tayyib, azka. So we can use that because you're also Ashab Kahf. This womb is like a cave, and the child is not yet coming out into the world. So it's like almost like an itikaf in a state of retreat, a state of disconnect from the dunya. Then you should try that your risk that you're going to feed it to the child, that is going to go to the child through you, should also be both halal and tayyib. So the baby in your womb is also in this khalwa, in this seclusion. It's like a cave. It's not yet come out into the dunya. You want to ensure that it gets this food that is halal and tayyib. So then the question comes, what is the definition of tayyib? What is the definition of tayyib? Halal, halal, let's just do that first. Halal. Halal means, number one, that it is earned from a lawful income. So one has to be sure about their husband, that their income is lawful. So the money that is used to purchase the food or purchase the ingredients that are used to cook the food, that must be earned from a lawful source. No interest, bank interest. And second, obviously, the ingredients themselves must be lawful. These are the two main conditions for the food to be halal. Now, what does tayyib mean? Tayyib means more pure, more wholesome. And yes, it has a physical aspect. Like some people prefer to eat more organic, more wholesome, more healthy food. But it also has a spiritual element. So one element of being tayyib food, is that food that is prepared, which is cooked and prepared by a Muslim person of Iman. And secondly, by a Muslim who's not an open sinner, doesn't do fisk and fujur. And then prepared by a person who is a practicing Muslim who prays salah regularly, does all the fara'id. Next, it can be prepared by someone who has all of that, and while they're preparing their food, they're doing it in a state of wudu. While preparing the food, they're in a state of wudu. And next, they have all of that. In addition to being in a state of wudu, they're also in a state of zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're making the zikr of Allah ta'ala throughout the preparation of their food. So this is something which can be done. There are women today as well who do all of this. And just to complete the last part, to finish this tayyib process, is that while she herself is eating that food, she can be in a state of wudu as well, and she can be in a state of zikr as well. So while she is expecting and pregnant, she is eating in that manner. Then also during this whole period of pregnancy, she should take a lot of care to observe all the fara'is and wajibat and all the mandatory things at whatever level of obligation they are. And then try as much as possible to do all the things which are liked and beloved and preferable and mustahab, sunnah acts, do more amalu saleh. All of these things will have a positive impact on the child right now. And it's strange that sometimes what happens is that the couple, husband, wife, they want a pious child, but they don't make amal. Rather, they're just stubborn, they're lazy, and then later on they get puzzled that what happened? Why is my child turning out to be disobedient? Or even worse, disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reason is that if they were themselves disobedient to Allah ta'ala while being pregnant, then why should a person be surprised if the child later grows to be disobedient to Allah ta'ala as well? It's because we nurtured that child on disobedience. And that's how we should think. It may or may not always work like that, but there's a possibility that we should think that I want to be as much practicing always for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, so that the child that comes from me will also be practicing. So if a woman is pregnant, she should want to make even more amal. She can make even more good deeds. It's mentioned in the kitab. There was a story that once there was a husband and wife, a couple, and Allah Ta'ala blessed them that they got news that the woman is expecting. And when the child grew up, he became very disobedient. And parents didn't understand that what was happening. So they were discussing with one another, did something happen? So then the wife, she mentioned that, while she was pregnant, she would eat the fruit of a neighbor's tree whose branches were falling on their side of the yard. And she didn't take permission before eating them. So actually, they were fruit that belonged to the neighbor. So just this effect of eating food, and you can call this haram food because, or you can call it maybe doubtful food, this can also have an effect on a person. And then it's written in the books another story that once there was a pious old man who had many children, and all of them were pious except for one. And someone once visited him and noticed the stark difference and asked him that what happened. And the old man became very sad and he had tears in his eyes. And he said that, this child of mine, he turned out disobedient because of something that I did. I did something. And he said that once there was no food in our home and we were hungry, and then somebody sent some food and I unlawfully obtained some food. Unlawfully. I usually don't do it, but that day I unlawfully got some food and we ate that food. And then that very same night, me and my wife, we conceived. Our child was conceived on that night. And because I had this doubtful food that day or haram food that day, the child that was conceived that night, he turned out to become disobedient to Allah Ta'ala. So these things are not small, they can have an impact. And they can have this spiritual impact. It's very important. Then on the emotional side, our Mashaykh, they say it's also very important that a woman should always try, and everyone around her should also try to keep her happy and positive during the pregnancy. Try to protect her from every type of sadness and sorrow, because sadness and sorrow can also make pregnancy more difficult. And then the act of listening that we mentioned before, audio recitation of Quran. This is also really helpful. That in addition to her own recitation of the Quran, as much as possible, she should try to listen to the Quran as well. Because this is again something which is scientifically backed, that the baby in the womb develops the ability to hear. The ear starts forming, the hearing sense starts developing. And so if near to that, you can recite the Quran, the baby will be able to hear it. So then one should make this attempt as much as possible, that the baby should be listening to the Quran. The baby and the woman together, they'll be listening to the Quran, listening to Quran, listening to Quran. Mother can also try to recite the Quran. At some point, she might get tired of reciting Quran. She can just then lie down and the Quran can be playing for the baby. Normally, it's not the adab to do that. But if you do this with this niyat, then one can do so. Because the mother might be sleeping, but the baby inside might still be awake, might be kicking, or so the baby can still be hearing the Quran. So there's somebody who's still listening, and she can make this niyat that her baby is listening. So imagine, and this also there's a story. The books mentioned a story where someone who had this habit, a woman who had this habit of reciting the Quran and then listening to the Quran, and her child was able to memorize the Quran very quickly, because for about 9 months, the child had already listened to that Quran in the womb. So it became easy for the child to become Hafiz of Quran later on in his own life. So, so these are a few initial things, and just these initial points, we can see that how many women, how many of these things we were able to do, and this is an opportunity, right? Then another intention to make while having a child is what the Prophet ﷺ said in a Hadith Mubarakah, that he wanted that the couples of his ummah, they should bear more children. But on the he will be happy to enjoy, he will see the large number of his ummati and will become happy. So one intention to add is that I want to have a child to make my Nabi alayhi salatu happy on the day of judgment, to bring joy to him on that day. And one is to make him happy with me, and one is just to uh, yani, sometimes we read things that this was a particular meal that the Prophet ﷺ liked, like sarid, and a person wishes that I wish I was alive, and then I could have cooked this particular meal, sarid, for the Prophet ﷺ, and could have presented that to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ would have become happy with that, right? But I wasn't there at that time. But now that we have read this one thing in a hadith, that Nabi alayhi will be happy when he sees the children of his ummah. So I want to have this child so I can make my beloved Nabi alayhi happy. So this should be the intention, even before conceiving. Another thing that people ask is about the gender. And there is no strict answer. Modern scientific means only Allah knows best, right? And Allah Ta'ala can give whomsoever He wants, male children, female children. But the thing is that both are a gift from Allah Ta'ala. In the Quran, Allah says Allah gifts. He's a bestower of these gifts. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gifting you a child, and He can gift whomsoever He wants. And that's why it's very important that number one, a person has this yaqeen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gift me whatever He wants. So it's a gift from Allah. So Allah will gift me whatever He wants. And second, also, we should have this yaqeen that I should be happy. I should be equally happy if I have a daughter than if I have a son. It doesn't matter. If I have 3 daughters and number 4 is still coming, I'll be equally happy if it's a daughter or it's a son. I might have 7 children already. All 7 are daughters. If number 8 is also a daughter, I'll be equally happy. Why? because you can look at this as a gift aspect. This is a hiba. It's a gift from Allah Ta'ala. When your beloved gives you something, you are happy that any gift that your beloved is giving to you, because it's coming from your beloved. So daughters are also blessings, sons are also blessings. Daughters are gifts, sons are also gifts. Both of them are equally blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yes, surely daughters and sons are different. They have different ways of loving. Uh, they have different aspects in personalities, different aspects of loyalty, a different color to their love. And certainly, any and every person can have this wish that, Ya Allah, I want you to bless me with both types of gifts, because we want every type of bounty and blessing that you have. We love to receive every ni'mat and every bounty from our beloved. So it's fine to have that wish, to have that desire, to have that dua. But at the end of the day, we must be razi. We must be content. We must be pleased with Allah Ta'ala, no matter what the gender of the child might be. And uh, this is what the Prophet ﷺ has taught us as well. There's so many stories about daughters as well in the Quran. In fact, this is the Sunnah that Nabi Sallallahu had daughters. The sons passed away in infancy. So one can make this niyat, happily think that, Ya Allah, you are giving me the opportunity to get ittibai sunnah, to follow in the footsteps of my beloved Nabi Sallallahu. Then Allah Ta'ala has mentioned many daughters of Anbiya Sallallahu, the daughters of Shu'aib alayhi salam, Sayyidina Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha. So in one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever has two daughters and the parents, they raise them properly, nicely, with tarbiyah, tazkiyah, adab on deen, and then they go all the way to their adult life, and then they get married and settle in their homes, then that person, the Prophet ﷺ said, he raised his hand and showed his two fingers joined to each other and said that this person would be as close to me in Jannah as these two fingers are close together. So there's no hadith like that about two sons or one son or three sons. So this should also make people desire that, Ya Allah, I want two daughters so I can do amal on this hadith. I can have this path to Jannah. So these are a few things which were during the course of pregnancy. And then we also mentioned that the labor itself, this is also a time when the mother, her sins are forgiven. This is a time when her du'as are accepted. For every pain that she experiences at that time, it becomes a kafara for her sins. Uh, that moment, and she should prepare for that moment. She should beforehand prepare for that moment, because otherwise, obviously, in that moment, it can be very chaotic. But if she's prepared, she will remember at least a few of those du'as. There'll be some few precious du'as that at least she will remember, and she should definitely make du'a for the child, that, Ya Allah, bless this child with Jannah, make him a loyal ummati of the Prophet ﷺ, make him, Ya Allah, your beloved. Let this child be a paragon, an example of deen, example of ihsan, a person of haya, a person of taqwa, a person who loves you, Ya Allah. So the more prepared she is, and the more it's her niyat, then it will be easy for her to make du'as even at that time when she's giving birth. And if a person is not prepared and they don't have these things in their consciousness, in their foreground, then they can easily forget and they can miss this golden opportunity. This is a golden opportunity to make du'as when the baby is born. Now, then it's preferred in our deen, highly preferred in our deen. But there are always individual circumstances and individual situations, and mothers will have to navigate this on their own. But generally, you can say the rule of thumb is that it's highly preferred that the baby should drink the milk of their mother, as opposed to the formula, powder milk formula. You know, this was the way that even mothers used to tell in the past, used to tell their children when they grew up, that they would scold their children that, how do you disobey me? I nursed you for so many years. And now the child can respond and say, you didn't nurse me. It was the bottle that nursed me. And then the child will retort that you won't be able to use this line on me. Uh, but it's not just about that. Uh, and it's a bonding experience. It's a very important experience that the woman must have with the child, that uh, a woman, after the nifas, she tries to be in a state of wudu. And this is also another thing, that nursing in a state of wudu, and a woman, she should try to, sometimes it might be very inconvenient, but sometimes it's easily convenient, it's easily possible. She should try to always be in a state of wudu when she's nursing her child. Once our own Sheikh Ghazali gave the example of this, that there was a woman student of his. She was always in a state of wudu. And every single time she said, I nursed my child, I did so in a state of wudu. So, Allahu Akbar. These mothers are still alive. They're contemporary 21st century stories, which we are telling you. There are still mothers like that in this world. That imagine, uh, so careful, so conscious about that. And then one can only imagine how many du'as she must have made for a child, how many du'as she must have made while she was nursing her baby, how much fikr and concern she must have had for her baby, and then being in a state of wudu all the time. So she could have been doing tilawat while nursing. She could have been doing all types of du'as and zikr and ibadah with the extra added benefit of wudu. And then the mother, she should also make sure that if they're nursing their baby, they say Bismillah, because the baby cannot say Bismillah, it's too young to know this. So the mother should say Bismillah on behalf of the baby. And the mother should try to remain in that zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during this process of nursing. The mother should be making du'as. And there's a story about Hazrat Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti Rahmatullah alayh, that once he went on this tour and thousands of people accepted Islam and they made Toba, and he came back and told the whole story to his mother. And the mother said that, Beta, oh my son, this is not because of you. It's because when you were small, you were a baby, I nursed you. Every single time I nursed you, I was always in a state of wudu. So it's that effect. And certainly this has a spiritual effect on the baby, on the child. So one should make du'as, and Mashaykh, they teach us that just like you can make dua that, Ya Allah, for every drop of milk, Allah, give my child an ocean of your marifah, an ocean of knowledge, an ocean of your love. So almost like that, she should be making du'as to Allah Ta'ala. Uh, and it's sad that sometimes we don't understand this, and we hear examples about women who are nursing their baby while watching TV, or sometimes doing all other kinds of things, social media and phone. And these are things which could adversely affect the taqwa of the child in the future. This can have a spiritually detrimental impact on the child. So try as best as you can to follow the natural, the barakah method. Uh, then after that, there's another thing which should be done, and that is called tehneek. Tehneek. And what does tehneek mean? This is a tradition from the Sunnah. It's a Sunnah act. And it's that they should obtain either a chewed date or a leftover of that date, mix it with saliva or something like honey, mix it with saliva, and And this could be by anyone that the woman and the mother and the father they view to be from the Salihin. As some Salihin, Muttaqin, some pious person to do this. And again, this is a very beautiful tradition in our deen, this tahniq. How fortunate were the Sahabiyat that they would get this tahniq from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. How many children of the Sahaba were just raised on this one sunnah? Allahu Akbar. And how many children of Tabi'een were raised on the tahniq of Sahaba Ikram? So this is a sunnah. It's a sunnah. And then one thing also in that was left is that when the child was born, the baby is born, to recite the adhan in the right ear and the ikama in the left ear. So these are some of the early things: azan in the right ear, ikama in the left ear, and then tehneek within the first few days. And this is also one of the beauties to recite the azan. And yes, you can ask some pious person who you think is pious to recite azan. And even the father should also try to do this. So this is a bit about father. We missed out yesterday. Father should also have this ability to bond with the child. The mother should be bonding through nursing and so many other things, right? So it's good that the father should also recite the azan in the right ear, iqama in the left ear, so the father feels close. The father realizes then that my parenting is also beginning now. My parenting is about this, about teaching my baby Allahu Akbar, about teaching my baby Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, about teaching my baby Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, about teaching my baby Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala salah, inviting them to everything in deen that will give them akhirah. It's a very moving experience for the father. So that should be done. And then there is the process of naming the child. So you should try to give a good name to the child, a good name. So it comes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves these names like Abdullah, Abdul Rahman, Abdul Rahim, Muhammad, Ahmad. Allah Ta'ala loves these names. But fair enough, a person, it's not confined, they shouldn't be confined only to these names. One can use names of the Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam. One may use names of the Sahaba Ikram. One may use names of Awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's another way. Anbiya, Sahaba, Awliya. And sometimes also, there are some people who like to pick a different type of a name. They want a unique or some exotic or rare type of a name. But you should be a bit careful when you do that. At least just ensure that the meaning of that word, it's appropriate. It's appropriate to use that word to name someone, to call someone. And then the meaning of that word is also something which is wholesome, which is good, which has a nice meaning, pure meaning, nice, and a wholesome, good meaning. And the same also applies for the names of girls as well. Obviously not the Anbiya alayhi salam, but Sahabiyat, names of Sahabiyat, names of the female awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, names that the Anbiya alayhi salam kept their daughter, the names of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu, the daughters of the Prophet sallallahu. So these are considered some of the better names. Then there is also a sunnah to do akika on the 7th day after birth. And you can see all of these things are happening in the initial period. These are things which are orienting the child on the path of deen. That in pregnancy, shukr to Allah Ta'ala. After that, every woman, making dua for a healthy pregnancy. And our 7th day, it's the sunnah. Prefer to do on the 7th day, but you can do it later as well, on the 14th or on the 21st. But the sunnah amal is to have akika, where one slaughters and then you can have a feast, invite close friends and family, distribute some among your family, to share the happiness with everyone, with the poor also. Now, this stage, the mother is, she continues bonding with the baby, and it doesn't end. This bonding doesn't end at the delivery. Again, this continues all the way, even after birth. And here again, recitation of the Quran. This is really, this part continues. Throughout the time the baby is a toddler, there are some women, mashallah, who play Quran so much that by the time the baby is two, that baby 9 months in the womb and then 2 years in infancy, that baby has listened to the Quran maybe 50, hundreds of times. And like I said before, that it's possible that if you do that, then the child can do hifz very quickly, very easily at a very young age. So that should be done. Similarly, when the child is like a baby or a toddler, uh, parents, mother, she can sing lullabies. So our Sheikh Azaji, he would love to tell people about this, that they should sing lullabies that have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name in them, that have the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in it, that have the zikr of the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like the Arabic one that I remember is Hasbi Rabbi Jallallah, Ma fi qalbi ghayrullah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. So there's zikr like that. And a person can do this in their own language as well, So the most emphasis should be on the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this baby, especially in these first 2 years of their life, when they're also being wet nursed, uh, uh, for the 2 year period, for this 2 year period, that they should keep hearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name as much as possible, as much as possible. They want to hear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name. So whether it's live, whether it's recitation of the Quran, they should have heard by age 2, they should have heard the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thousands and thousands of times orally listened in their ears. Because for the baby, they're registering everything. It's not just the mind, it's their ruh, it's their qalb, their spiritual heart that is listening to it. And this is the main training from 0 to 2. Because in the first 2 years, a baby, every now and then they might speak one sentence, two sentences, but they're not really speaking at this time. So the most important thing is that they should listen to the Quran, listen to durood and salawat, listen to the blessed name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And second, hear the blessed name of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we should take the full name. We should take the full name with adab, with love, and so that the baby gets used to this feeling of hearing the blessed name of Allah Ta'ala and also the blessed name of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. So this sort of covers the baby up to 2 years old. And then the next major hallmark is when the baby is now a 7-year-old. So Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam in a hadith said that let your child play until that age of 7. So it basically means that from 2 to 7, this is a play thing. Let them play. But that doesn't mean that you can still, there's still some aspects of tarbiyah that can be done at this age. So we already spoke about the name of Allah Ta'ala, the name of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You can also introduce small ayat of the Quran, small surahs of the Quran, then small du'as. And a person will be amazed that even at 4, 5, 6 years, they have a lot of memorization potential. I was in Seattle and someone mentioned to me that their child was 6 years and at the age of 6 was Hafiz al-Quran. Subhanallah, amazing that Allah Ta'ala has given this potential that at such a tender age, you can have a Hafiz al-Quran. 6 years, 7-year-old, we had this Hafiza. In Pakistan, we had someone was a Hafiz al-Quran, a girl, Hafiz al-Quran. So small that she wasn't even able to stand on the mimbar. And she had to stand up on the highest step of the mimbar so that everyone could see. And then this little 7-year-old girl, She was not, she wasn't nervous at all, and huge thousands in front of her, and she just took the mic and she started reciting the Quran. So Allah Ta'ala has given these children this incredible quwwah and this fazl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the power of children from these ages 2 to 7, introduce them to Quran, introduce them to du'as, and also introduce them to the concept of Allah Ta'ala. And this is really important that in this age, the child is capable of developing feelings. Feelings. This is the first formative feelings that are coming into the heart of the child. And that's why put this feeling for the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before everything else, make your child fully attached to the love for Allah Ta'ala and love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the best way to accomplish this is stories. Stories. Stories, you can share them from the bayanat, share them from the lectures, share stories about the mercy of Allah Ta'ala, share stories about the love for Allah, animal stories related to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Children, they love animals. Uh, share stories about Qasasul Anbiya, the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the child shouldn't just know that they believe in Allah Ta'ala, they should know that Allah Ta'ala is kind and He is soft and He is loving and He is merciful. So that by the age of 7, the child should feel that Allah Ta'ala is the most wonderful being they can have. That a child by 7, they can fall in love with Allah Ta'ala. And definitely they have the ability to do so. They can fall in love with Allah Ta'ala at age 7. They can fall in love with Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam at age 7. But they just need stories. They need that knowledge. They need that ilm. They need somebody to guide them to those feelings. So from 2 to 7, you want to work on their feelings. Feelings for Allah Ta'ala, feelings for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, feelings for the Anbiya alayhi salam, feelings for the Sahaba, and try to first introduce them to positive feelings. And then, yes, at a very light level, you can mention things like what is wrong and what is right. And then Allah Ta'ala also gets upset when you do something that is wrong. But you don't need to give a whole bayan on the fire of Jahannam at this small age. Some women, we see that they overdo this. Like 5-year-old child, and they're learning about all these extreme things. Uh, so that should come a bit later. First, give them positive stories, and just an introduction about the other side, especially the concept of wrong. Make them first love Allah Ta'ala, and then tell them that Allah Ta'ala views certain things as wrong. Because when they already love Allah Ta'ala, then they will view those things as wrong anyway, because their beloved Allah Ta'ala views them as wrong. And if you don't put the love for Allah Ta'ala first, and you try to tell them these things are wrong, you will get questions from them. I don't understand, why is this wrong? Why is music wrong? Why is this toy wrong? And later on as well, you'll still have questions, but that why doesn't Allah Ta'ala like this? So you have to put the right feelings first. The first feeling should be the feelings of loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So by age of 7, the child should really, really, really have these deep feelings, strong feelings of love and attachment to Allah Ta'ala, love and attachment to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and have this desire, this wish to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just one story about how our Salaf Salihin, they did this, how they put this love for Allah. There was a very big sheikh and wali in India by the name of Khwaja Qutbuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki Rahmatullah alayh, one of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when he was born, his parents, they thought that we should raise him up well, and we should put the love for Allah in his heart. So they decided, what should we do? And they thought of an amal that the wife, she said, the mother, that uh, uh, when the son went to school or to the madrasa, the mother, she hid one piece of bread in a closet. And when the child came back and said that, Ami, I'm very hungry, give me some roti, some bread. And the mother, she said that, oh, my son, roti, bread is something that Allah gives to us. Allah gives this bread to us as well as parents, and Allah gives this bread to you as well. So you should make dua to Allah, ask Allah Ta'ala. And then the child sat on the musalla, raised his hands and making dua that, Allah, I just came back from the madrasa. I'm so tired, and I'm hungry as well. I'm thirsty as well. Allah, please give me roti, and please give me water, and please give it to me quickly. And then after making this dua, he said, now, mother, what should I do? And she said that now Allah would have provided this for you. You should search for this in this room. So the child is now searching, and then the mother guided him. And when he went into the closet, he found the food. He was very happy. He ate that and said, Alhamdulillah. And then he asked that, Ammi, every day Allah gives us food. And the mother said that, yes, every day Allah will give you food. So now this became his habit, that every time he would come back from school, he would make dua, and the mother, she would hide the food somewhere, and the child would search and he would get the food. He would eat it, would be very happy. This continued for some time. One day, the mother, she had to go to visit her relative, and she got delayed in coming back. And then she remembered that, oh, my child will be coming back now, and he will not find food anywhere in the room. So all of my effort will go to waste. And she's crying, and she's now walking fast, making dua to Allah, that Allah, I did this small strategy. Please don't let this go in vain. And this muhabbat of you remain in the heart of my child. I made this mistake. I wasn't careful about the time, wasn't able to cook food. But Allah, please don't allow this yaqeen that my child has about you. Allah, don't break this yaqeen. So she reaches home, and when she opens the door, she sees that the child is sleeping, peacefully sleeping on his bed. And the mother, she quickly goes to the kitchen, she prepares roti, food, and then hides it somewhere in the room. And then very lovingly, softly, she wakes her son, that, oh, my son, I'm sorry, I was a bit late, and today you must be really hungry and really thirsty. Why don't you make dua to Allah Ta'ala? And the son was like, Mama, I'm not hungry at all. And the mother asked him, what happened? Why? And he said that, Ammi, when I came back from the school, I laid down the musalla and I made dua to Allah, Ta'ala, today I'm really hungry, and please give me food. And today my mother is also not at home. And Ammi, when I made this dua, and then after that I searched down in the room, and I found that in this one corner there was roti and food for me. And Ammi, when I ate that food, this was the most delicious food I've ever had in my life. And the mother, she embraced her child, and she thanked Allah Ta'ala. So this was Hazrat Qutubuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki Rahmatullah. They went on to become very big wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A lot of people then made Toba at his hands, accepted Islam at his hands. So when the mother, so this is what we're saying, the mother doing tarbiyah of a child in such a way that she's putting this concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this should be done. Also, one should try to do tarbiyah of the child to give them good habits. So one good habit is to teach them salam. That they should have a habit of saying salam to everyone. Whenever they enter, whenever they meet anyone, say salam. In a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, Afshu salam bainakum. That they should shake hands and then say salam. So more we should try to put them on this good habit. sometimes children, have this natural hesitation. It's not that they're depressed, but sometimes they're just fearful about the stranger, fearful about the other person. But if you keep telling them that you have to say salam to them, tell them the way to say salam, tell them the manner to say salam, so that fear, the natural fear, goes away, and the child develops that courage to be able to go and say salam. Similarly, another good habit is to tell them to say thank you, jazakallah, every time they get any blessing, a toffee, Eidi, toy, a candy, a present. Always tell them to say jazakallah, to say thank you. Make this a habit. Instill within them at this young age, uh, so that they understand that whenever someone does good to them, then they should thank that other person. This is something that the Prophet ﷺ taught us in a hadith as well, that man lam yashkurin nas lam yashkurillah, that whoever is not grateful to people, then not grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a adat, a habit that we have to instill in them at this age. To say jazakallah, jazakumullah khair. And also another good habit is to tell them to practice cleanliness, and to remain clean and neat and tidy. Tell them the fazail of cleaning, of remaining clean, that Allah loves those people who keep themselves clean, who keep their clothes clean, keep their room clean, so that they develop this as a good habit within them as well. And if uh, when they make a mistake, when you see that they made an error, we should try to very affectionately, lovingly tell them that you made a mistake. Now you should seek forgiveness. Seek forgiveness, so that this mistake will not be presented on the day of Qiyamah. Tell them the fazail of seeking forgiveness. Tell them also the manner of saying words of forgiveness, so that again, that hesitation goes away in their mind, that sharam goes away. They become accustomed to seeking forgiveness, that whenever they make a mistake, it becomes easy, natural for them to make mistake. Mistakes, young can also make mistakes, elders can also make mistakes. So when you teach this to your child, that whenever you make a mistake, whenever you do something which you're not supposed to do, this is a time when you should seek forgiveness from the other person. And we also make mistakes. You can also make mistake. So if you, let's say, are disobedient to your siblings, or you hurt them, or you were fighting with someone, now you need to seek forgiveness from them. And then say this to them, that if you do this, then after that also seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that Allah ta'ala also becomes pleased with you. So try to bring Allah ta'ala as much as you can in your conversations, in your tarbiyah, so that this is instilled at a very young age into the heart of that child, that the worst that can happen to me is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes upset with me. This is one of the most important things of a tarbiyah, that we instill this, that the worst that can happen is I do something by which Allah Ta'ala, my beloved Allah Ta'ala, becomes unhappy with me. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to imprison your child and don't allow them to play. This is the age of playing. Let them enjoy, let them jump and run, and all of that is really important for their physical nourishment and development. And one or two more last things before we end is something really important, that mother and father, both, they should uh, take extra caution of not fighting in front of their children. And the strategy for this is that husband, wife, they should consult each other, that whatever the issue, we'll try to resolve this in the privacy of our room. because children, even if they're young, they have a very, very strong memory. And when husband, wife, they are having this dialogue, argument with each other, the children, they may not make you feel as if they're noticing, but they're listening to everything. And everything is being imprinted in their mind. And this has a very negative impact on their personality. Because in their mind, they're thinking that my mother has no value and my father has no value. Their fights never end. And they're just unnecessarily establishing their robe over us, uh, their hukum and command over us. So when the mother, when she is saying something to her child and she becomes a bit angry, uh, in their heart they say that she's actually angry because of the father, and she's just letting that anger out on us. And the same thing, when the father becomes angry, they think in a similar way. So in this way, their tarbiyah suffers. So when Allah Ta'ala blesses someone with a child, this nemat of a child, so husband, wife, they should now become more intelligent, because now the responsibility increases, and doing good tarbiyah of their child is now a responsibility. And hence, they should not fight and dispute and argue in front of their children. Those husbands who are thinking that we can scold or shout at our wife, they are doing what they can do. They're doing the level best to raise their child in the baddest way possible. And the reason is because the wife, she will be doing the tarbiyah, she will be doing the training. And when the wife, the mother herself, is being treated in such a fashion, then how will the children give importance to their mother? And that's why it's the responsibility of the father that he always establishes the respect, the honor, the izzat of the mother in the eyes of the children. And similarly, this is also the responsibility of the mother, that she always respects her husband, the father. So in this way, it becomes easy for them to do tarbiyah. And one last thing is that when the child makes a mistake, a small mistake, we should not make it a habit of always punishing them and scolding them. This is not a good habit to threaten them. Uh, uh, Rather, we should deal with them with respect. And by dealing with respect, it leads to a good personality within the child. Uh, if we're always constantly punishing them and threatening them and scolding them and insulting them, then their natural inborn qualities will never be able to flourish. Those leadership potential, those leadership qualities, those good qualities which are latent, which are in them, they will never become manifest. So that's why one of the responsibilities of the mother in this regard is that if a child makes a mistake, make the child understand with love, with affection, with softness. So, for example, you have a daughter and she wanted to drink water, and you were busy with something, and the door of the fridge was open, and while taking the water out, she there was a plate that had food, and she took that plate out as well, and the plate fell on the ground, and the food is now wasted. Now, when you look at the daughter, don't just start shouting and screaming and scolding or insulting, but rather one should come and lovingly tell and softly tell that, beta, it's okay. This was something that was written that had to happen. And this is what Allah Ta'ala decreed. This had to fall down. It's okay. next time, if you want something from the fridge, you can just let me know. Don't be worried. This was from Allah Ta'ala. This happened. So when you say this to your daughter, she will reply that, Ammi, I will be very careful next time. I will not be a bad girl. I will do what you're telling me to do. And then the daughter, she will ask you that, Ammi, when the father comes back home, you won't scold me, right? And Ammi, if the father finds out that I did this, then he won't be upset with me, right? So then you give tasalli, you console her, you comfort her. Then no, 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 I will not tell your name. I will just say that this just fell down. Um, and uh, in this way, uh, you will see that the girl will view you as her source of support, that she is with me. And my mother, she loves me, she conceals my faults, and she's my companion. She's my friend. So in this way, if we can show sympathy and love, then that same daughter, when she grows up, she will be there to help you in your times of need. She will be there to console you, to comfort you, and will do khidmat of you her whole life. So in this way, we have to create personality within our children. Let those uh, latent attributes come out, that azmat, the greatness, that the leadership potential, that haya, that khidmat khalq, let those qualities come out. Those are naturally there. The love for Allah Ta'ala, let those qualities come out. When the food is wasted, when the food fell on the ground, just give this tasawwur, this concept that this was something that was decreed by Allah Ta'ala. And then also you can add that, oh my daughter, just seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala gave us this ni'mat, this blessing of food, but we wasted it. So I hope that in the future, these blessings are not taken away from us. So in this way, if you teach your child that we should be careful about the blessings, and we should apologize if we make a mistake, then inshallah this will help to strengthen their iman, strengthen their iman. And also, when we want the children to do something, we should, as opposed to saying and giving a
So I
direct
think this,
order,
you have the light switched on, so please.
as opposed to giving a direct order, we should try to use some strategy so that they agree to do what we are asking them to do. So basically, there's so much more, but inshallah we'll end here. And we make dua to Allah Ta'ala, that may Allah Ta'ala accept all the women who are here and those who are listening, that may Allah Ta'ala make you the best of women, may Allah Ta'ala make you the best of mothers, may Allah Ta'ala make your children the best of children. And what that means is, may Allah Ta'ala make you awliya women and awliya mothers, and make your children awliya children. And may Allah Ta'ala enable us to learn and be more conscious and be more careful and take this role and identity of being a mother and having a child as a great blessing from Allah Ta'ala, and a great, incredible means for us to pass this test, and rather pass this test with flying colors. And may Allah Ta'ala not make our children a source of fitna for us, but rather, inshallah, if you follow this guidance of our deen and the advice of our ulama and mashayikh, then inshallah we can use this test as a means of drawing both closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, drawing both ourselves and our children closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this from all of us. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. يا رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلى الله تعالى على حبيبه خير خلق محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين آمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.